Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Elephants. I'm your host, Destiny Farley, and today I'm interviewing James Sims about his experience as a black male in the military. James joined the military when he was 18 years old and served for 11 years in Iraq and Afghanistan as a sergeant in the Army. In 2016, he tore his labrum in his hip, so he was forced to exit the armed forces at that time because he could no longer run. He's originally from Compton, California, and essentially joined to escape the street life and violence he experienced growing up. He's experienced symptoms of PTSD, both from growing up in Compton and serving in the Army, and just the extreme amount of violence he's witnessed in his life overall. He's agreed to share some of the struggles he's faced, which I so appreciate, and I hope you guys appreciate as well, because it is very difficult for veterans to discuss these things. I've actually had multiple veterans that I've asked to come on the show in the 6 years that I've been doing this, and every time I've asked one of them, they've said no because they felt like it was going to be too difficult for them to talk about, or they just didn't want to relive it. So James, I just want to reiterate again how grateful I am that you're trusting myself and the audience to hear your story. But before jumping into my questions, can you briefly introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about what it was like for you growing up in Compton and how you found the military? We'll kind of start there.
So my name is James. You already gave me a pretty cool introduction, so I appreciate that. I'm from Compton, California. I was born there in 87, so I grew up in the 90s in Compton. And the 90s in Los Angeles was a challenging time for, I think, anybody in the city. So, I think gangs had really kind of just exploded. It was at the height of it. My mom was an active gang member. My dad is an active gang member. A lot of my family, cousins, my brothers were in gangs. So it was really just kind of what we did if you were out there. You know, every day was a different survival, I guess, because you couldn't wear certain colors. You couldn't, it didn't matter how old you was, you couldn't be on the wrong side of the street sometimes if you live in a different neighborhood. So the typical Los Angeles thing. Where stuff got interesting in Los Angeles for me anyways, it was when my mom and dad split up right after the LA riots, and they broke up. I think that was 93, something like that. And yeah, but my dad, it was crazy. My mom was crazy. He actually did a drive-by and shot our house up when I was a kid. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, my sister still tells a story about how she dove on top of us and was covering us up with her body. It's crazy to think about, when you're 5 years old or something like that, that your own parent would do a drive-by on your house and bullets flying through it. It's crazy. So my violent experiences started real early, obviously with something crazy like that. And then my mom met a lot of different guys, and she was attracted to other gang members or guys that were in prison. So a lot of the times they didn't know how to be men either. So we suffered a lot of physical abuse at the hands of those men. Not because they were bad people. It's just that that's how they knew how to handle problems. So they inflicted that on us a lot of the times, trying to discipline us. And so we learned growing up at an early age to solve our problems with violence. That's what we did. Everything was confrontational. If we felt like somebody was disrespecting us, you had to address it. And we was taught to handle that by fighting, So my mom eventually left California at the end of the 90s, and she came out here to Las Vegas, Nevada, where we're currently at. And she was trying to make it out here. She was on Section 8 and food stamps, all that stuff. So she came out here, got a house, and was still getting California food stamps, which is more. So her friend told on her, or said she was going to tell on her, and my mom ended up going back to Cali and kind of left me and my older brother out here, just didn't even tell us, just left us. So we ended up having to stay with friends because obviously we had nowhere to live, so we was bouncing around a lot. The company of my older brother, he's a blood, he's from Bounty Hunters, and the company that he kept was more street people. So that became always fighting, always getting. I got shot at a couple times because somebody's trying to get at him and they couldn't find him. And they would see me walking because nobody had a car. So we was always walking or catching the bus. So they think they catch me slipping, shoot at me or something crazy or try to jump me. And then I would go back and get him. And then it'd be constant. It was like that up until I was about 17. So I was dating this woman out here in Las Vegas. It was actually one of my friend's sisters. And it's a white girl. That's why I don't date white girls no more.
Oh, God.
But yeah, so she was cheating on me with a bunch of dudes from around the neighborhood. Cause I used to stay on the historic West Side, and she was cheating on me with a bunch of dudes over there. And there was this Crip guy from LA. And I remember he approached me one night after I got off work, and he was saying crazy stuff. And I remember he had a gun in my head talking about, he don't do this and do that. But then he wasn't because he knew my girl and all this crazy stuff. I just had a crazy upbringing. And I think that was the last straw for me. I was like, I'm out of here. I thought I was going to get killed. She actually cut me with a knife before, too.
So you're just very accustomed to violence. Like you've known it from a very young age.
Yeah.
So was there like a specific that interaction is what prompted you to want to join the military, or what kind of pushed you to be like, you know what? Because I feel like, and this could be a stereotype, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like when you grow up in that environment, especially in the era and the area that you grew up in, it's kind of like fuck law enforcement, no? Like, so I'm surprised that like you felt, I know that military's different, but I'm surprised that you went that way. And I mean, really, like, you kind of beat your circumstances, because I assume that a lot of the people that you grew up with didn't beat it or are still living that lifestyle or are maybe no longer with us. So what kind of pushed you to want to join the military?
Yeah, so to tell you the truth, I never really had a problem with law enforcement. I mean, we used to run from them, but like, and they would say crazy stuff, racist stuff to us, but like, I don't know, I never really had a problem with them. I guess because I wasn't like ever officially in like gang life like that, like our street life. Like I was affiliated, what they call it. So I was like guilty by association, but I was never really in it. So I didn't really see the cops as like my main enemy, if that makes sense. So me going into the military, I think a lot of black dudes from the hood go to the military because it's just like it's like a stepping stone to get out. There's no way out. I couldn't rap. I know it's gonna sound stereotypical, but I couldn't rap, couldn't play sports that good. I was good at fighting, but it's not gonna get you out of a situation. So my only escape that I saw was going to the military. So that's why I went.
Have you seen someone like get killed in front of you?
So I've seen some situations. I've seen people shot. I've seen people stabbed. But I didn't stick around and watch them to see if they expired. No, but
you've seen people have bodily harm inflicted on them and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Did that happen for the first time in the military or when you were living in Compton?
No, when I was in LA, I saw stuff out here in Vegas. I used to live in the Nellis Gardens over there across from the base, and Nellis Gardens was kind of crazy. And I saw somebody get stabbed up over there before. And then I used to be a CNA. I used to be a CNA before I joined the military too. So people die in the hospital all the time. So we got to clean them up. So I was accustomed to like death. So that didn't bother me. I was desensitized to it really. So it didn't really bother me.
Okay. So by the time you were in the military, it was like something that you had already experienced so much that it wasn't like shocking to you.
Absolutely.
How did your family and like your friends in the community around you respond to you joining the military? Was it a positive thing? Was it negative?
Yeah, so it's crazy. Yeah, it was mostly negative because I wasn't close to my family like that in the first place, so I really didn't tell them. I told my mom. I tried to actually join the Navy when I was 17, and she told me no. She wouldn't sign the paperwork for me to go in. For whatever reason, her reasons. But then I ended up joining the Army when I turned 18. And I remember she told me if I get killed over there, I better get buried in California because she ain't flying nowhere else to come see me.
Wow.
So that was an interesting one. I was mad at her for that. And then also, I came back when I first joined. We do this like hometown recruiting. It gives you a couple of extra days of leave. And I went back to like the Nellis Gardens and kind of the west side trying to recruit dudes that go to the military, and they was like running from me like I had some kind of disease, like I had COVID, in the beginning or something. It was like, well, you the feds, we ain't messing with you. I was like, that's crazy. So it was so funny, like growing up, like being around them people, and then all of a sudden now I'm the feds, so nobody want to talk to me. Even though I didn't see it like that, like I'm the feds, I just like I'm in the military, like they're not you the feds.
Well, that's what I was asking about earlier. Is like it's like a cultural thing where they kind of look at you like I don't know if it's like you switch sides or they look at you like the enemy now, but that's kind of what I was asking, where it's like it seems like there was some pushback from the people around you when you entered. Can you kind of like describe, because you don't enter the military right off the bat as a sergeant, right? Like do you like work your way up, or like what did your journey look like, and what did you actually do while you were in the Army?
All right. So the journey to the military is interesting. So you start off, you go to recruiting station, you get to get recruited, you'll have like a week or two of like what they call the future soldier program. So they'll like, you got to come down and do classes and whatnot. Then they'll send you off to get enlisted in like what they call MEPS. So you take your ASVAB test, you pick your job, however you score, you pick your job. And then you'll come back for like another week, and then they'll ship you off to wherever you're going after that. It's basic training. So when I first originally came in, I was a combat engineer with a 21 Bravo or it's a 12 Bravo. They switched it back and forth. I did that for the first 3 years, my first contract. I re-enlisted after Iraq to be what they call a 92 Yankee, so it's a unit supply specialist. And then, funny story about that, and I ended up coming right back to the same unit I had left. So it didn't change. The job pretty much stayed the same, even though I had a different job technically in the military.
When you say like you were an engineer, what does your day-to-day look like? Were you ever like in active duty combat, or were you more so working like behind the scenes and working on gear and stuff like that? I don't really, to be honest with you, know that much about the different roles like in the Army, in the military. I know there's different branches too, so it would be great to kind of like have some insight on what it looks like for you on the day-to-day. I know it probably changed over 11 years too, but
yeah. So different. All right, so different. There's different jobs. It's like any, like, just think of it as a corporation, right? Everybody got a different role, different position, but we work as one singular unit. So you have your support people, you got your combat people, and combat support people are in support of combat people, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. So the main job is to support the warfighters, and an engineer is also a support element. That's a combat arms element. An engineer's job is to support infantry with clearing obstacles. Most of the time, though, the whole thing is just like breach and clear. So usually they'll have like a squad or a team of engineers attached to like an infantry company, and then we'll be in support of them however they need it. In Iraq, it was mostly like route clearance, what they call it. So it's like you pretty much go out driving like really slowly, and you're looking for bombs or IEDs, and you either hopefully don't get blown up by them, but you try to find them and blow them. And if they're too big, then we got to call another element like EOD to come out, and they'll do the job for us. But for the most part, that was it. But I was in the 101st Airborne Division, and we had a different battalion of engineers come out in Iraq. So I didn't get a chance to really do a lot of that. At the beginning we did. I had a 15-month tour out there. So when we got replaced, they moved us to more of a light maneuver unit. So it was like zero engineering, and it was more like light infantry type work. But we were still, the mission in Iraq is so funny. It's not like how it is on TV, right? Where you see, like, you think everybody's out there just on patrol looking for the enemy. Infantry is, yeah, but like, a lot of the times it was like what they call hearts and minds. We're trying to like figure out what we can do to make people's lives better so they can like us better, so they can tell us where the bad guys are at, right? We're not just there to kick doors in and all that stuff. Like at the beginning of the war, it was more like, what can we do? You guys need water, you guys need food, you need soccer fields, whatever the thing is, and we try to just do that. So a lot of the times we'd be on regular patrols, just looking for like, maybe we got a tip there's an IED factory or something. And other times it was like going to town hall meetings, right? But either way, you're still outside the wire. You don't know what's going to happen that day. So you want to talk about the first time I experienced combat, right?
Yeah. If you have experience with that, for sure.
All right. So going back into the first time. So we had a mission. This was a big mission. I'm not going to get too into the details about the mission just because I don't know if it's unclassified now or what. But we had got intel through another mission prior to that there was a terrorist training camp somewhere out in the middle of the desert, right, where we're at in Iraq. And we were supposed to go there and pretty much, break up this camp and arrest these people. Because back in the day, this was 2007, we could arrest people or detain people. I say arrest. We could detain people and bring them back to base for interrogation and then whatever. But anyways, so we loaded up for this mission. And we knew we were going to take contact because it's supposed to be a terrorist training camp. We didn't know how many people would be out there. We thought the scale would be a lot bigger for sure. So we're going out there. We're riding. It's far. It is far. I forgot. It's been I don't know how long ago. 20 years now. It's been a long time. So you got to pardon me if I remember every little thing, but it's been a long time. But yeah, so we get out there to the site. I remember it was chaos because we had a bunch of Iraq police battalions, not Iraq Army, Iraq police battalions, which are a little bit different. And they were with us in support of our battalion. We had our whole battalion out there with us. Not going to get into how big a battalion is, but it's a pretty, it's more than 1,000 people. Let's just put it like that. So we had our whole entire force out there, and then along with, is it 1,000? No, whatever.
A lot of people.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
So we had our whole battalion out that way, and so we get into the situation to where I don't know. We get out there. We get these white pickup trucks kicking around, spinning up dust, and we were confused because there was no big terrorist training camp. The intel was kind of off. There was people out there for sure, but there wasn't these buildings and this little. I don't know what we were expecting, but it wasn't that. So we showed up, and all of a sudden, our vehicle, our convoy kind of got split because we were getting lost in the desert. And we were using helicopters to kind of guide us to where they were seeing. And they were saying, the enemy's over here, the enemy's over there, the enemy's over here, right? Because they're just pointing all these pickup trucks out, and people are taking contact. They're shooting out the back of these pickup trucks at our Humvees. And I remember we first pulled up. We were the third vehicle on scene. But the first one, when I saw it, it was just smoking. It was messed up. I guess because one of the guys had hopped out one of the trucks. He had ran up and completely blew himself up. So I don't know what happened to that vehicle. I didn't have time to check, on those guys at all because before I realized it, they were already shooting at our truck. So I'm turning around. And mind you, I'm 18 years old. And the first thought that came to mind, and this is going to sound, I don't know, I'm a punk or whatever, but as these rounds were hitting the truck and whizzing by my head, the first thing I did was duck. I ducked in the turret because I was a gunner on this mission, so I ducked in the turret because I don't know, I didn't want to get shot. So it sounds crazy. I didn't want to get shot. So we have glasses around the turret, so I'm looking, out the glass and I'm trying to see. And I remember my commander, because I was a commander's gunner, he's yelling at me, "Fucking light them up, engage, engage, engage." And I'm sitting here, it took me a second. I kind of froze for a second just because my life didn't flash, but it was damn, I didn't do anything either. I ain't had no kids. I ain't never been married. It's all this stuff had flashed. It was crazy. But anyways, that lasted for literally a second, and I had popped up, and then, I engaged with that. And that didn't really bother me. I didn't really care about that because when I joined, I told myself from the beginning, I already knew that what was gonna happen. And I think they prepared us pretty well in basic for that, too, as well.
How do they prepare you? Just really quick, and then we'll come back. But how do they prepare you to
in
essentially,
basic?
be ready to kill
simple.
people?
They don't prepare you to be ready to kill people, but they just make everything life or death. That's what the military is very good at. That's a part of the soldierization process, what they call it, when you show up to basic and they kind of rip out you and they put the Army values in you, right? And they do that by putting you under extreme stress, sleep deprivation, and putting the fear of whatever in you. So they do that. They used to do these things called chart. You don't have time to think about what you want to do. It's like you have orders, you have rules, you have this, you have that. If you mess up, then everybody's getting punished. So you don't have just the pressure of the drill sergeant on you. You got the pressure of you mess up, then your whole platoon's gonna be on your head too. Because like, you know, if you do something too crazy, you know, it's gonna sound bad. But it's kind of like a prison mentality. Because you know how it is. If you get in there and get everybody messed up, then it's a possibility somebody might drag you behind a bunk at night or in the bathroom. We had a situation where somebody snitched about something and they drugged that dude in the bathroom. And, you know what I'm saying? That was it. So I was like, you learn real quick, like everything's kind of a street mentality is how I look at it, because a lot of...
Is it like, sorry to interrupt, is like a mindset then that they build into you? Like, so that it just becomes a muscle memory when you're under pressure, like because they put you under such extreme pressure and basic, then it becomes like muscle memory to be like, oh, I don't have time to think, I just have to act. And that's how they prepare you for when you're in like combat and you're in a Humvee and there's trucks shooting at you, so that your mind kicks in that same way. Yeah,
I think so. We have that motto, train as you fight. All right, so like everything we do is under like, we try to do it hard as we can in training. That way it's not so bad in combat. But the issue is we all come from different backgrounds, different walks of life. And it doesn't matter how much you train for it. Until it happens, you don't know what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing like with the streets. You can be the hardest dude on the streets ever, you know, and then you could put in a situation and you don't know how you're going to respond to it until it happens.
I think it was it Mike Tyson? He was like, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
But sorry to interrupt your story. So you're on your turret and you're shooting.
Yep.
And then what happens after that?
So anyway, so everybody's engaging at this point. The helicopters, we had a couple different types of helicopters with us. They were engaging, blew up the trucks as well. So it was just like a lot of like, you know, a lot of shit getting blown up pretty much. So we had, at that point, contained the area. We had a good security perimeter. This is the part that messed me up, because I can prepare and understand to kind of prepare and to like kill somebody or be killed, right? But what you can't do is the things that are outside of that part of the job, right? That's what I didn't realize. So they had detained a couple people. Not everybody got killed. You know, they wanted to get information. So they detained 6 guys. They had found them some cave. They detained these 6 guys. They had them stripped down to pretty much their to their nothings and zip tied behind their back. Then they had one guy that the Iraq police found. I don't know where they got him from, but I remember they had dragged him in this truck in the back of like a little like, think of like an old like Toyota pickup truck. So they have in the back of that, and they were yelling that he's a terrorist and all this stuff, and they was beating this dude with this pole for like, it felt like forever. I can't even tell you how long it was, but I remember I called it up on the radio and I was like, hey, they like, you know, messing this dude up pretty bad. Cause I can just sit here and hear him like, he was like screaming. I could hear they had like these metal poles or whatever they had. I could hear like the thumps on his body. I could hear when they were missing and it was hitting the truck, I could hear just all that. And then eventually the screams die down, and then you just, the screams die down, and then you just hear like nothing. Then you just hear the sounds, you know, like just, you know. And I'm just sitting here, and like, I was like, first I was watching, and then I like stopped watching because like it's just hard to watch somebody get pretty much beat to death in front of you, you know. And I feel so like bad about that shit, because like I could sit here and be like, okay, I could shoot somebody and do whatever, but like watching somebody get beat to death and you don't know if like they really was a bad guy or not, that shit sits with you different. It's not like, oh, I saw my friend get shot or something crazy. It's like hearing somebody get beat to death, and then from the beginning where it's like they're alive and screaming and fighting, and then it's just like nothing, and they're still going. It's different. It hits different. You don't forget that kind of shit.
And this is the Iraq police that are doing this?
Yeah, it's the IPs. We call IPs.
So they probably have like a different way of handling things than, I mean, I don't know. Maybe the Army handled it the same way, but would you say that that's like more brutal than the Army would have handled it, or is it kind of like? When
you said Army, you mean our Army?
Yeah.
No, we don't do shit like that.
Okay.
So that's not how we would handle whatsoever. We would detain them, and then we put them in a system, so we can track them, and then we bring them back, and then our military intelligence people will take them and then get information from them further.
Do you know how they're getting information from them? Because
No, they have like a detention center, and they just like pretty much like how a cop would sit you down if you got arrested in an interrogation room, and they'll just be like asking you questions, trying to get information. And then they used to get paid for however long we held them, and then they would be released. I know you like probably referencing that stuff you see in the movies. That's more like that kind of stuff was more like black ops stuff. That wasn't like regular army. Regular army wasn't doing that. That was like, like maybe, I don't know. I can't say because I don't know.
Yeah.
But that wasn't us.
I guess I wonder, I mean, because I have such limited knowledge, I should probably know more, but I wonder if certain branches have clearance to use like force to get information out of people. Like, I don't know.
If they did, we wouldn't know about it.
Right.
And I don't, like I said, I can't speak on it because I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, I know CIA and stuff like that just through movies. I know, I'm not about to sit here and put.
Yeah, they're gonna put
I don't know.
a bounty on you.
Not even, yeah, but they did whatever they felt necessary to save lives, I guess. But for us, for regular military people, it wasn't like that. It was like we detain them, we get whatever information we can get, we identify these people. They're pretty much in our system that way. Could we collect evidence just like police do, right? Just think of us like world police. So if there's an IED or a factory and we go out and this guy then got released, and now we can track and try to find him and who his contacts were and get more information that way. It's kind of like releasing the person back so you can get more, like hopefully they'll go back to like their cells or whatever, and then now we can get better intel.
Yeah. So you were saying that you grew up around a lot of violence. I mean, obviously, like you've detailed some of the trauma that you've experienced, but do you think that obviously there's something that stood out to you about hearing that guy get hit and basically like watching someone's, life slip out of them? Was that more traumatic to you because you like saw the process all the way through, and did you have other experiences like that, and did you become more desensitized to it, like the more that you saw it, unfortunately? And like, what was your experience with it? Whatever you're comfortable sharing. I don't want you to have to relive too much if it's painful, but that's just like a crazy first experience. Like, you're 18 years old seeing that, so I can only imagine what the following 11 years looked like.
So to get more about that goes back to childhood, and I really believe it's because like I got a lot of PTSD from childhood, just from like abuse, right? I told you like my mom's boyfriends and stuff, that's how they dealt with us, and that's how we deal with a lot of stuff. But so I was real shy as a kid. I didn't speak much. I used to get bullied a lot, like elementary up. Even though we were training to fight and all that stuff, I used to get bullied in school. I was real quiet. So like I always felt this like helplessness, right? Like I can't do anything. I was always scared to do something. It wasn't until I became a teenager where I kind of found my voice and became a lot more aggressive in nature and a lot more defending myself. So when I saw that, somebody like being beat like that and like I couldn't do anything, it took me back to that space of helplessness. And I think that what was that combination of the childhood trauma, because that incident might be, to somebody else, might be nothing. You're like, good, but for me, that was traumatic because I went back to being a kid. I felt like a kid in that situation. I felt scared. I felt like I was in danger. I felt his pain, even though was the enemy potentially, So seeing that and not being able to do anything about it went against my like moralness, my soul, my integrity, my personal. It wasn't a military, like my personal conscience.
Yeah.
It was eaten at that.
I mean, I think you should give yourself credit, one, for being able to like recognize what that's connected to, because there's so many people, not to stereotype, but as you know, especially Black men that don't have that ability to be like, oh, this is connected to some kind of trauma from my childhood. It's just like they don't have unfortunately, like the tools or the awareness to make that connection. So definitely, I think you should give yourself some credit for having the ability to be like, oh, this is connected to something deeper than just the military. This is like connected to me. And then also, like when you were describing like your reaction, I feel like it's also important to know that you were still like a human through all that, you know, and that's important because I think the average person, especially people that don't have any plan or desire to join the military, and then even more specifically in active duty combat, like they are not going to have that experience or that trauma of seeing like the delicateness of life in front of them, you know, like someone who's just completely helpless, and this is human beings doing this to each other, right? And like I'm sure, especially now with everything that's going on in the world, you hear people all the time talking about how there's no winners in war, right? Like war is just death of humans, and like everyone is losing something by being there, and I think that it's important for people to hear and realize that it's hard for you guys too as soldiers. Like you're not just robots, you're not just machines. You're out here and you're seeing like another human man have like that happen to him, and like you were able to connect that to something that happened to you in the past. So I think that you being able to still be in touch with your humanity, and that was you at 18. Obviously we're 20 years out now, and you're still like, just from the experiences that I've had with you and the way that you are with your son and the way that you talk about women and the way that you are in class and with other people, like you've really still been in touch with that human side of you. And there's a lot of people that come out of that and don't have that anymore, you know, because they block it all out, or the trauma is too much, or they harden themselves and they push people away because they don't want to get close to people anymore because there's been too much pain from everything else that's happened. So I think that, you know, if no one's told you yet, you should really know that you've overcome a lot, and the fact that you're able to still be like vulnerable and compassionate as a person, like I admire that in you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I would like kind of go back to say a little bit about that. Like combat is human on human, but I would say I don't think we look at it like, 'cause I think we're okay with doing stuff like we know needs to be done. You know, like I knew what needs to be done. I know when we go out, and if
When
we
it's
take
like defense,
if it takes, I know we're going to do something because this is going to save lives. We got to protect everybody back home, and what we're doing, that's important for that. But like I said, it's just the things that you can't control like that. Like for example, if somebody saw a kid blow themselves up, that's a hard thing to swallow because you're there to kick a grown man's ass, but like you're not there to shoot a kid. You know, that's just something that's going to get on anybody's moral code that has a soul for the most part. Or a woman blowing herself up. Or I witnessed a situation to where we're supposed to be friendly on these patrols. They want us to, I know it sounds crazy, but like we were really focusing at the time when I went on like trying to make the community like us better. So we weren't allowed to like have our guns always pointed. Sometimes we had to have them up, not in a threatening posture. Sometimes we would be like, hi or whatever. And I remember we waved to this one chick and she had sat there and they have these like the full dresses on. And I don't know why she did it, but she, I guess, had waved back. Typically, don't make a movement. And I don't know, her husband, whoever saw that, man, they grabbed her and they just beat her up right there on the street. It was no joke, And that's when I realized, like, damn, are we really helping in situations like that? And we can't do nothing. We can't do a single thing.
Did you feel like they hated Americans out there, like, or was that more an exception to the rule?
Nah,
because there's this big narrative, right? That, it's not Middle Eastern people; it's more like terrorist organizations. But I feel like there's this narrative that's put out that people in that area and in the Middle East and mostly like extremists hate Americans and like wish death to America.
So I'll put it like this. We're talking about two different times. So in that time in Iraq, in that early beginning of the war type time, there wasn't that kind of level of, they were extreme, but not to the level of what you see nowadays with like ISIS, Hamas, and these kind of like more extreme terrorist organizations.
This is like post 9/11 though.
Yeah, but there's still two different post 9/11 periods. I would say it changed again after 2010. So from like 2000, I think we invaded Iraq in like 2002, 2003, somewhere in there. And then I went there in 2007, so I was like OIF 3. like the third or fourth iteration into the war. So like IEDs that just came out. We remember we overthrew, the American government wanted to overthrow Saddam Hussein, the dictator in charge. That was a whole thing, overthrow him. Then the power vacuum happened, and then you had Taliban, Al Qaeda, and then there's like the Sunnis, the Shiites, and there's different versions of Muslims that all also hate each other. So there's all this fighting for control, and then it's like then us. So it's like, yeah, we had like an enemy, Taliban, and then like Al Qaeda, but then we also had these other groups that are like, this is our country. Imagine if they came to America, you know, it wouldn't be like death to Iraq or Afghanistan, but they're in our country. We're going to defend home turf. And I look at it as the same way with them. We're in their country, regardless of why we're there. That's their country, and they're going to defend home turf.
Yeah.
And it's just simple as that. I think anybody, any country, any person would do that because they got respect for the home, regardless of how our country sees it.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people around America, a lot of people around the world don't like Americans, and I'm pretty sure if we come to their country, they're going to want smoke. And if they came to ours, we're going to want the same thing. We're not going to let them just tell us how we're going to live and what we're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
No. So.
Yeah. You have a good perspective there. Like your ability to put yourself in other people's shoes. You know, it's a sign of empathy. Were there moments in your service where you felt like genuinely proud and like you were doing good and you felt happy to be there, or was it mostly, you know, like you were having moments that made you question your decision to join?
That's a good question. I don't know if I ever thought about it like feeling proud. I remember I came back from Iraq, so we had a 15-month tour in Iraq. We came back from Iraq, and I was just happy to be back. I was happy that I had a bunch of money in my pocket. I never had that much money in my life before. I was happy I had the money. I was happy to be back. We just wanted to go to the club and buy every pair of Jordans under the sun. I never thought about, did I change the world? That was the last thing in my mind. I just wanted to go live. That was it. Nobody died from our company in Iraq, not a single person. We had people get shot. Nobody got killed, though. It was a different feeling coming back from Iraq than it was, like, for example, Afghanistan was a different tour, different country, different set of problems. So, yeah, Iraq wasn't like that, though. Iraq was a little bit more like, oh, good, we made it back. Yeah, let's go spend this money.
And then you got deployed a second time to Afghanistan?
Yep, got deployed to Afghanistan. How our things work, at least in Fort Campbell, I can't speak for everywhere else. We will, whatever amount of time we deployed, they try to give us that much time back home. It's not exact how much time they give us back home, but if you deploy for a year, they're supposed to kind of give you a year back. I think we deployed 15 months. I got back in December of 2008, like end of that, yeah, like almost around Christmas time. And then we deployed to Afghanistan in 2010. And they came back 2011. So that's almost like we had almost a year. We didn't get the full 15 months before we went to Afghanistan.
And were those experiences different, or were they pretty much the same?
Yeah, it was totally different. So prior to that, my unit had only been to Iraq. Matter of fact, I think the whole 101st Airborne, minus like 3rd Brigade, I think 3rd Brigade went to Afghanistan. We'd only been to Iraq. Iraq's a different country. Like I said, different country, different problems, whatever. Afghanistan was different. That was more of a cohesive. When I say cohesive, I mean like there wasn't so many groups struggling for a power vacuum. This was like, they were like a country and they all had a singular goal of we weren't going to come there, or if we came in their territory or their village, they were going to stand their ground and defend it, regardless of why we were there, regardless if they were a terrorist organization or not. So it didn't really matter necessarily, I guess, in Afghanistan. They were kind of like, you know, respect our shit.
Yeah.
So.
Did you develop like good relationships with your like fellow troops? Did you feel like a sense of camaraderie out there? Did that make it any easier for you, or did you feel like you were still pretty like disconnected from everybody?
My unit was tough, so I would say in like your rank level, I would say there's probably some camaraderie there, but like it's different at the levels, and there's a lot of different types of friction because my unit was a tough unit. It wasn't easy to be there. There was a lot of being yelled at, a lot of cussing. It was kind of like being in basic training like all the time. Like they were just really strict. Very life or death. Everything was always life or death. You lose your ID card, life or death. You know, you lose your room key. Oh my God, somebody can get killed. Like
yeah.
It was always like that. So that pressure never really came off with the unit. But I think we do this thing in the military called we embrace the suck. So yeah, it sucks, but we all go through it together. So we kind of use that as like motivation in a weird way to kind of come together. Like
So
that.
you were close with them?
Some of them, yes.
Yeah. Do you still keep in contact with any of
Oh
them?
yeah, easy. Even the ones that I didn't have a good relationship back then, it's different now because I think what's going on is when you're in that kind of environment, and it's, I don't know if you can put this or not, but there's a lot of like racism and a lot of shit in the military.
You experience racism in the
Absolutely.
military? I was gonna say, what is that experience like for you?
So when I first got to my unit, I was like the second black guy there, and then there was like one Mexican, and everybody else was like a white redneck dude from like the South, and like some of them were openly racist. Some of them were a little bit more subtle with the racism. But when you went into kind of like a police officer or the military, there's kind of this pack mentality where that everybody kind of takes on the attitude of the unit in a weird way. So if if the majority of people are hating Afghanis, then we think you all better, or you're gonna reap these like kind of repercussions, or you're gonna be on details you don't want to be on, or put places you don't want to be put. So you kind of just act like the group in order to minimize friction, because there's no way to get out of it. That's how it is. So when I got there, I noticed every single details are like when they need somebody to do something, like go dig a ditch or pick up trash or cut grass or paint barracks, it was always all the minorities and then whoever else they could sprinkle in. It was always like that. When promotions came up, we were getting looked over for promotions. It's like we were always never good enough to be there. We always had to like earn our spot harder. Even like for promotions come up, slots would come up, we wouldn't get them first, even though we had better PT scores or better weapon scores. It was always more for us to prove ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's how that environment was for a little bit.
Were you like uncomfortable in that environment, or did you kind of just like shake it off?
No, we just click up. The minorities click up more. And then we just hang out with each other more. We laugh about it because it's funny,
Mm-hmm.
but like it's not funny when it's happening, but it's funny to laugh about it later,
Would you say that overall, like, you had a positive or negative experience? Would you do anything differently? Would you regret it? Would you take it back?
That's a good question. So the military overall was positive as hell. I ain't gonna lie. If it wasn't for the military, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And because of certain situations and how I see the world, I'm able to help some of the guys now that need it, like from my unit. Like how you said, does anybody like reach out? Before we got into that last comment, it's because a lot of these cats, when they was in there, especially like the white ones, they had like this camaraderie that was a little bit stronger because they was all clicked up. But then when they got out, and then like, because you got to remember, like now it's been 15 years since Afghanistan, 15 years, right? That's a long time ago. And a lot of these cats are still living in it like it was yesterday. And one of my boys hit me up like 2 weeks ago, and he called and he was talking about how he's just almost breaking down in tears about some stuff that happened in Afghanistan, like that they had a really bad ambush and like people got killed. My blood brother was in the same company with me, and he almost got killed. He went through his versions of PTSD. But they were talking about it, and this guy, he couldn't just stop. Like, he's still living in that day, and he hasn't got no counseling, no help, no nothing. So like sometimes these guys, they feel like they can't talk to nobody about it because they don't understand. So they talk to you and open up to you about it because you understand and you were there with them, right? And then they always say, man, I needed that, thank you. And I'm like, that's why you gotta go to counseling, bro, because like talking about this shit, you carrying around this big ass weight, you fighting with your wife, you about to go through a divorce, and you ain't got nobody that you can like, you feel like you can tell this stuff to. That's why it's like, even if somebody didn't like you back in the day, if they went through a thing with you, they'll call you and be like, hey man, hey, remember so-and-so? Yeah. And they'll just kind of get into it. And the next thing you know, you're talking about the damn situation that you didn't want to be talking about, but they need it, so you just kind of let them vent.
What was like the hardest part about coming home for you? Or did you not really have an adjustment period? Were you just happy to be home? Or did you start to realize like, oh yeah, like my PTSD is flaring up?
Right. So that's, so for me, I had anger issues. My PTSD was anger issues. And I didn't really have like depression or none of that, because like for me, like I said, it was more of a moral thing. So I wasn't like I didn't see my friend get shot in front of me, so I didn't have like survivor's guilt. That kind of PTSD is different, which is why I hate groups, because everybody's PTSD is different. But yeah, so for me it was like I was angry a lot, because I felt when I get that helpless feeling, I have to like lash out. And the only way I know how to lash out is through aggression, whether it's verbal or like physical. So I found myself when I would get like yelled at by the commander or like another NCO for doing something crazy and I didn't know what to do, I would go run and punch a wall like right away, or I'd throw something and they'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I'd be like, nothing, I'm good. And like, you sure? I'm like, I'm fucking fine. And I, go to the office. And one day, we were in Afghanistan, I had a sergeant, he was pissed off at me because they moved me from the base we were at that was a little bit more like isolated and like not safe to like this air base where they had like Disneyland type stuff. It was like food there and stores and Air Force, and it was just chilling. They wasn't like, we was in some rundown like ex-Soviet castle with like no perimeter. People were wandering on base. We were constantly, it was scary. Mm-hmm. And then you go over here to this Air Force base, and it's like you're not even deployed. They got movies and parties. They having a club nights, and I'm sitting here like, what the,
Yeah.
And he got mad because the commander moved me out there, and I didn't ask for it. It just happened. So he started making my life really hard. Getting in the command group ears, I wasn't doing my job. I wasn't doing that. And the command group started to come down on me, applying this pressure. And mind you, this happened back in Iraq, so now we're in a different combat zone. And I flipped. And I remember I told him, I was like, fuck. He started to put me on some kind of like punishment to where I had to like call him every hour on the hour. And if I didn't do it, no, I'm a grown man at this point. I'm already a sergeant. I'm a sergeant. I'm already like, I'm like, who the... and this dude, he wasn't even in the company from the beginning. Like, I've been in the company for like 6 years at that point. And then here he come trying to do all this stuff. And I'm sitting here like, what the, and I couldn't believe the command group was taking this side because they all knew me since I was a private. So I'm sitting here like, I can't believe this. And I lost my mind. So I told him, I was like, the XO, the lieutenant called me. And I was like, sir, you know what? I'm about to hop on a helicopter. That's the only way I could have got to the base was to, by helicopter. Or you got to do a convoy. So I told him I'm going to catch a flight up there. I said, when I get there, I said, sir, I'm going to whoop your ass, and I'm going to whoop Sergeant DeRose your ass. And, yeah, that didn't go out. I hung up. The next phone call I got was from the first sergeant telling me that I was pretty much about to get a UCMJ action for threatening an officer and a superior non-commissioned officer and all this shit. And I didn't care at that point. I really was mad. I really went to the PAX terminal to fly out and everything. But luckily, it's so crazy. I don't know if it's God or whatever, but I was sitting there for like waiting for the flight to go out, and they had a spot for me. Then it got took up by a priority person that had to go. So I was waiting. Now you what they call like a space A. So I had to wait, until they had an open seat. So I sat there for 6 hours. You ever sat somewhere for 6 hours? You know what I mean? You got a lot of, you calm down. You got a lot of reflection. So I finally got up and like left. But I was really ready to go and just whatever. Yeah. So that didn't go well. They took my weapon from me. Crazy in Afghanistan, took my weapon. I got ordered to go to mental health. I had to go see this colonel, this Air Force colonel, and talk about why I was so angry and all this nonsense. And that was my first experience with counseling. If it wasn't for that scenario where I snapped and was literally about to go hurt, an officer, I wouldn't have got help.
There's a lot of stigma around men asking for help. And even more so, I would say, for Black men, and even more so for men in the military. There's just like, that's one of those environments where there's so much testosterone and it's like a lot of masculinity and stuff like that. So how did you come to a place where you felt ready to seek support? I'm assuming it had a little bit to do with, you being forced to kind of experience counseling for the first time. But what made you decide on your own, like out of your own volition, like I want to talk to somebody, I want to work through this?
Yeah, so honestly, it was when we got back from Afghanistan, and a lot of guys had been through a lot of traumatic stuff because I didn't see a lot of combat in Afghanistan, like almost little to none. We had a situation where our base got messed up pretty bad, but that was a different situation than like what they were going through out there. So when I saw a lot of those guys, they were just combat fatigued. I could see it on their faces because I know what it looked like from like Iraq. And I remember I just wanted to tell them like about talking to somebody because it helped me out a little bit when I was out there, getting forced to see that mental health provider out there. So I was just telling them like, hey, if y'all let this stuff sit inside of you and it boils up, you're going to explode. And that happened to me. And I almost threw everything away because I let my, emotions build up and not getting help. So I was just telling them next, I could see a lot of them were quiet. I noticed my own brother too. He had habits he was picking up, like he was trying to smoke cigarettes. So I could see he was trying to cope with his problems by trying to find something to take away what he was feeling. A lot of people have increased drinking to try to numb those feelings, and it gets you in trouble on the back end. Luckily, too, I got orders to go to a new duty station after we got back from Afghanistan, and I got there, and I got in trouble the first, I think, 2 weeks I was there because, I don't know, I was just used to how it was at Fort Campbell and us like being able to yell at each other and cuss at each other. And I got sent to mental health again, forcefully. So I got sent again, and then I went there, and at that point, I started unpacking more stuff, and then they sent me to a civilian counselor because they couldn't get me an appointment to see the provider there. And then that civilian counselor started making me unpack more stuff, and then that kind of started my journey because I started realizing that it was making an impact on my life and like my performance. I was able to calm down a little bit. I wasn't so aggressive after counseling sessions and stuff like that, or I was identifying those triggers before they would happen, and I would have a chance to kind of come up with a game plan or understand that it's going to happen, so I don't snap on somebody and get in trouble.
Yeah, they kind of gave you like tools to cope with it in the moment.
I wouldn't say they gave me tools, but they helped me identify. Like I had one counselor make me like write down every single time I had an incident, like what happened before, what happened after, what caused it, what was I feeling, like whatever, just so I can identify because sometimes you don't know what's causing a problem.
Yeah, like what's triggering.
Yeah, it could be a smell. It could be the way somebody closed the door. It could be how close somebody's walking behind you. It could be anything. For me, it was people not paying attention sometimes. Like, so I'm coming out of a door and somebody's coming right here, and like I'm gonna stop and look, but people don't. Like at a grocery store, they used to it took me a long time to adjust to that because I was in this like life or death mentality all the damn time, and to me, not paying attention is a life or death situation. So it's just things like that. Starting that kind of deprogramming from that hypervigilance and that combat state that you're constantly in.
Yeah.
So.
Do you feel like the VA or like the military system and the healthcare that you get now that you're out of the military is helpful when it comes to mental health, or do you feel like it falls short? Do you feel like there should be more resources, that they should push it more? I know that it's a highly individual decision to seek therapy and counseling, but have you had a mostly positive experience with the VA?
So yes and no. It's a two-part question. So at the beginning, before the war really ended, it was a lot more, I guess, space available to kind of get us in. I know it sounds crazy, but it just was. But when the war, like, they weren't really pushing mental health like that in the military. Like you had all these people going through this stuff, leaders, seniors, and they all knew this stuff was something, but they would just be like, get covered up by giving you like, oh, you're a hero, or you saved all these people, whatever. But they weren't like telling you, oh, you're probably messed up, so you didn't really understand what was going on. And then that's also seen as a weakness. Something's wrong with you. You're not mission ready, right? So people hide that stuff to kind of keep it up. So when I got to the VA, it was similar. A lot of the people in there, like the VA people, they just want to like, oh, they try to like, you trying to get a disability rating, or like, oh, that's not going to get you a rating. A lot of it was like rating talk based.
What's a rating? Like what is that?
So your disability compensation rating. So when people get out of the military, like with the VA, a lot of the times when, like they look at like veterans, oh, you trying to report this or you trying to say this so you can get a disability rating, because that's like if you get like a lot of people's goals try to get like 100% disability, because that's just like, I don't want to say it's a thing, but it's like, it's like in people's minds, but
so they don't necessarily take everything you're saying seriously.
Some people don't.
Yeah.
Some people don't. I'm not saying it's every counselor at the VA, but a lot of times when I went in for these first initial appointments, I felt like I was on trial. Like I'm trying to like prove that like if you look a certain way or you look too happy when you walk in there, or if you too joyful with your statements, then that little dude with the paper who's not telling you anything is going to write down they think that you're fine. Even though you kind of like, you're taught to mask pain. Yeah. You're taught to hide that shit, right? So I'm supposed to go in there and do what?
Like
cry and
yeah.
fucking break down and be dirty like I ain't take a bath so I can prove to you that I'm not mentally stable.
Yeah,
That's
really
kind of what was
interesting.
going on. You know, and a lot of the cats, especially from my unit, they're not about to like stoop to that level just so they could, they're not. And I felt like when you go to VA a lot of the times, well, at least back in the day, that's what was the thing. Now they've changed with this whole mental health push, and they've been better at trying to like get veterans that help. But the issue is now there's so many people trying to get help. There's no appointments. You might go in and say, I got a problem. I'm depressed, whatever. I'm feeling this way. And they can't see you until they might tell you can go to quick like emergency counseling, right? But like they can't get you in for an actual appointment, maybe 8 months, maybe a year. Like, no, seriously.
Wow.
Like it's crazy. And then they'll say, okay, well, we can give you a civilian, a doctor. Now, even the civilian side, because like the country, I don't know what it is about people nowadays, but everybody needs more mental health services. So even there, you go there, it's still the same thing. It's like 4 months, 6 months for you can get in. I might not be feeling this problem in 4 months. It might be a whole different situation that
Or
happens
if
to me.
people really need help, they might not. They need help before 4 months.
Exactly.
Before they start spiraling or do something to try and hurt themselves or something like that. That's really frustrating.
Yeah.
What does healing look like for you today then? Like if you had this whole experience, you've gone to therapy, but it's a journey, it's a marathon, not a race, as they say. So what does healing look like for you today? Is it something that you're still working through?
Yeah, so it doesn't go away. Like I explained earlier. Like we talked to my friend the other day. Like I said, 15 years ago was the last time any of us were in combat, right? 15 years ago. And for me, it's been longer than that. So for him, he's still living like it was yesterday. So those feelings don't go away. It's still like you're kind of experiencing that when you think about that thought or whatever it is, you're still having that same exact, all those emotions, all that anxiety, all that stuff comes up from back in the day. I used to have these crazy dreams up to honestly a couple years ago where that dude who got beat in the truck, he would visit me at night. Like the bloody version of him would sit down. And it's so crazy because obviously dude didn't speak English. But he would sit down and he'd be like, why you ain't help me? Why you ain't, and that's just like my conscience eating at me about it. But it's just crazy to think, like that was probably from that situation like 20 years ago and up till about 15 years ago or 5 years ago, I was having them thoughts still, that guiltiness of not being able to do something about that, on top of like, other stuff that I'm not going to sit here and talk about today. But yeah, it's just sitting here like you don't get through it. There is no end for it. You might get more comfortable with your problem.
But it's always there.
It's always there. And you have to, the counseling helps you understand it, process it, so you can try to like get rid of that grief or that guilt, whatever it is, whether it's your friend getting killed, whether it's you saw something you couldn't do anything about, or whatever the case is to help you kind of get through it and realize that it wasn't your fault and you couldn't do anything about it. And it's it's kind of like okay, forgive yourself, forgive whatever. And that will help you kind of function. You're not going to unsee it. You're not going to unhear it.
Yeah.
But you can relieve that stress and that pressure.
What's something that you wish more people understood about veterans?
That everybody's not a... It's going to sound crazy. Everybody's not a fucking hero. Everybody's not everybody's not proud of everything they've done. Most people just want to be left alone. We don't want to answer questions about how many people we killed. That's like the first thing that comes up. Oh, you went over there? How many people did you kill? I don't know why that's the question. Yeah.
If you had a mic full in front of a room full of young men that are growing up like you did, maybe considering the military, what would you tell them about life, about their purpose, about survival, knowing what you know now, having experienced what you've experienced?
It's so hard because...
I'm sure there's many things.
Yeah, I joined the military at the height of a 20-year war. Like we didn't know it was going to be a 20-year war, but I joined it at the early part of a 20-year war. So it was a lot different for me. And it's so hard, like, I got out in 2016. So the military was already transitioning so much into, like, feelings and how do you feel and making sure people were like mental health aware. So for them, I would just say, oh God, that's a tough one. Just take care of your mental health. If something's bothering you, get the help you need, because it's going to affect not just your job performance, but it's going to affect your family. It's going to affect your personal life. There's no shame in getting help. It'll make you a better person. It'll make you a better soldier or airman or Marine or whatever branch you're in. You know, I think that's very important. And even as a leader, when you get higher in rank, recognizing those things, you might get a kid who had a crazy background life, you know, who's having some of these same PTSD symptoms from like somebody who went to combat, and you can identify that sooner and get them help. That way you can straighten them out before they throw away their life or their career because they can't figure out how to cope with the stress they're under. So just get help and then learn the symptoms and help other people.
Yeah, I feel like that's good advice for men in general, not even just the military, but definitely therapy is something that has changed my life, has changed the lives of many people around me. There's been so many episodes where I've talked about the importance of therapy and mental health and destigmatizing it, but
I would say, too, not to cut you off, but it's important to find the right therapist.
Yes.
You have to understand that every therapist is not going to be for you. I've had therapists tell me crazy stuff, and I'm like, I'm done. I ain't going back. And then I've found ones that are like telling me not what I want to hear, but what I need to hear, and coming up with solutions, not just me talking. So don't give up if you don't find the right one.
That's so important. And that's like a part of, because therapy is work. People don't, maybe see it that way. They see it as something that they don't want to do, right? Because it makes them uncomfortable, but it's a part of taking care of yourself the same way that you go to the gym when you might not want to because it's good for you. Same thing with therapy. It's work, and a part of that work is, I call it therapist shopping, where, you're both human beings. There's going to be people that you click with. There's going to be people you don't click with. Maybe you need to experience a man and a woman to see who makes you feel more comfortable. Do you feel more comfortable being vulnerable in front of a woman or in front of a man? Do you need someone who's your ethnicity? Do you need someone who also has had military experience? If you're faith-based, do you need someone that shares your same religion so that they can give you advice in that way? And I think
that's so true what you're saying, because like I was only going for men at first. I don't know why. I like female doctors to be my doctors, but when it came to that, I don't want to talk to men. And at first I had this white doctor. He was cool, but then it wasn't until I got this black female, I was kind of skeptical at first, but then she's actually the one that kind of unlocked more of that stuff and helped me unpack more of that stuff than he ever did, And she was just, I miss her. She was in Florida. She was a good lady. That was a good one for me.
And I've had multiple therapists over the years, and like some therapists they specialize in a certain type of therapy, like EMDR or cognitive behavioral therapy or depth therapy, and that therapist helps you move through like a certain period of your life. And then you might have to try out a different therapist who specializes in something else. For a long time, I saw someone who specialized in depth therapy, and that type of therapy takes you back to like things that happened in your childhood that traumatized you and made you who you are today.
I'm still processing my childhood.
Yeah, and you never fully process it. But then it got to a point where I was like, okay, I think that I've kind of worked through this. Now I want to move to focusing more on like me now, and I had to switch therapists to someone who was more cognitive behavioral therapy, who could help me when I was having panic attacks, that could help me give like myself tools to calm myself down when I wasn't with her,
Absolutely.
So it's work, and it's a lot of work, and it's hard work, and it's uncomfortable, but it's so important. Like, it's literally how you become a better person. And so kudos to you for recognizing that. Absolutely. Is there anything you want to add that I didn't already cover? We covered a lot.
No, just like I've seen this work. Therapy is not just in my life, but like I've gotten like my brother, he has a real bad experience. He had survivor's guilt because he should have been killed in Afghanistan, and somebody ended up dying, and he thought it was his fault. It wasn't, but he thought it was. And he hid a long time from counseling, and now it's going to take years. This isn't going to happen. You go to therapy, it ain't going to be a year or whatever. It took me 4 years to kind of start to chill. My younger brother said 15 years ago, it wasn't until about 2 years ago where he actually became functioning. When I say function, I mean he can go to work. So I think that's why it's important to get that help so you don't do something crazy, because it does happen to veterans, sadly, where they'll snap and then,
Yeah.
Now you're
Therapy
in prison.
people.
Yeah, therapy.
All right, James. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience with me and with the audience. If you guys have any questions or want to continue the conversation with James, I will have his contact information available, and I will see you again in 2 weeks to talk more elephants.